Since Star Wars is in such a good place right now, with all the love that it is receiving, and how the fans are just rejoicing about the content that they are getting,
Rey Skywalker.
and most importantly, how well the new people in charge are just winning over the entire fandom with their great movies and shows.
Telling me with a straight face that C-3PO is straight. I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
With Leslie Haylett trotting out the dead corpse of Star Wars for another terrible show, I thought it was a good idea to bring out an opinion that I've had for a while. Star Wars is overrated, and I'm just talking about the 9 main movies. I used to be a big Star Wars fan, but it just got to a point that I've lost all care and hope for this shit. It's been a hot minute since I've enjoyed any Star Wars content. The last thing I liked was the first 1 or 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, but even that fell all the way down to Helheim with season 3. I know people liked Andor, but that really just seemed like everyone's expectations for Star Wars has gotten so low to a point that anything that wasn't complete ass would just get glazed on. But what do I mean Star Wars is overrated? I think Star Wars in terms of quality of the 9 main movies, for some reason gets talked about in a really good light, except those last 3. Those last 3 get obliterated online, as they should. But even those have a small group of people that defend those movies. For some reason, I don't know, there's a lot of drunk people in the world. The other 6 movies, for some reason, get worshipped. Everyone gets rock hard talking about these movies and saying they wish Star Wars would go back to making things like them. Let's go movie by movie. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Holy snooze fest. This movie was so boring. Hey George Lucas, don't make a movie centered around a question that the audience already knows the answer to. The main plot point of this movie is the question of, is this random kid named Anakin Skywalker the chosen one? The umph of the movie is the characters going back and forth on if Anakin is the chosen one, and they are uncovering things about him that point to the fact that he is the chosen one. Again, the only problem is, as an audience member, you already know the answer to that question because the other movies that came before this one. So you lose that suspense factor of if he could be the chosen one or is a plot twist coming up. You don't have that because you already know the answer to that question, so what you are left with is a very boring movie. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
I don't like sand. Here everything is soft and smooth.
Yeah, I don't think I need to explain why this movie is terrible, so I'll just move on. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is the first good movie. The only argument I've heard online about this movie is that if you don't know anything about the movies, Anakin's fall up to the dark side seems very rushed. In the movie, he doesn't want his wife to die, so he looks for a way to save her, and he turns to the dark side and destroys basically everything he's ever known. It seems very weird because how does doing all that take less than just asking the Jedi Council for help? Of course he probably would get kicked out of the Jedi Order because he can't have a wife, but that's better than joining the dark side and killing kids. But if you've seen Clone Wars and other things, you know there was actually more to it than just his wife dying. What I think is so funny about the prequels is that when it came out, everyone hated them. Now, I wasn't old enough to comprehend what was going around me at the time these movies came out, but all I've heard of is that when these movies came out, people absolutely hated these movies. But now apparently people had a change of heart and say these movies were good. So what happened? Did people just need more time to understand what George Lucas was doing with these movies? No. People just got completely consumed by nostalgia, and just like with everything else, the older crowd will always say what they were watching growing up was better than things now. And a lot of the younger crowd wants to seem cool and like older things, so they jump on the bandwagon and glaze those movies as well. As a trilogy as a whole, it wasn't good by any means. All the movies had cool moments, like the lightsaber duels were the best we've ever seen in Star Wars, but the actual movies themselves were not good, except for episode 3. Now to the originals. I have the same thing to say about all these 3 movies. Great storytelling.
My sister has it. It's you, Leia.
Except that. But since they are movies that were made in the late 70s, early 80s, you have to deal with the bad acting and effects. I don't take away points from the movies from having these things, because what do you expect? But also, you still have to deal with those things when you watch the movie. I would say all three movies were good, but all of them have that asterisk of having to deal with bad everything, literally bad everything except for the plot. Then we get to everyone's favorite, the sequels. Disney's attempt to make a Star Wars trilogy, and my goodness, this shit was terrible. It started off fine. I think The Force Awakens, it was nothing special, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Last Jedi, in my opinion, was the worst movie out of all the 9. I still can't believe with my eyes that I had to see that Leia scene.
Un video más, mi gente, me encanta esta vaina.
Even with all the terrible things in this movie, it still had a chance to be kinda interesting in the end, with Kylo offering his hand to Rey. That would have been something to see, to try to see them work together, but of course they fucked that up as well. And then we get to the mother of memes, Episode 9, Rise of...
They fly now? They fly now!
Rise of...
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than They Fly Now. So what are we left with these 3 Star Wars trilogies? We have 5 mid to terrible movies, 3 movies that you have to give a break to, and 1 straight up good movie. Does this really seem like one of the greatest movie franchises of all time? Of course, in terms of money making, I mean, nothing touches Star Wars in terms of straight up profit, but quality? This shit's ass. And the shows don't make it any better. Star Wars should not be talked about in as good of a light as it is. The quality is not there. But why is it loved so much? The answer is actually pretty simple. It's an amazing fucking idea. Space battles with laser swords and people with the ability to move things with their mind. I mean, you are destined for success. The execution wasn't there, but it was such a good idea that it didn't need to be.
All right, play Off the Grid.
We off the grid.